Hey everybody, Hip Pause here. I'm here to bring you something slightly different. In this video, I'm going to highlight one of my favorite tools in the universe, and that is Unfold 3D Magic Edition 4.0.0. And what I got here is half a tarantula, and he doesn't have legs, obviously in here. His eyes are not in here. Those are going to be separate meshes, and to be honest, the unwrap on those are going to be kind of a non-issue, so I don't really need to worry about it. But I do want to make sure that the tarantula himself is set up before I actually go in and start sculpting some details on him. I want to at least have his unwrap parts be in general place here. So Unfold 3D is my personal choice for unwrapping stuff, and it has been for a long time, since before 3D Studio came out with the peel and the quick peel and the seam to seam stuff. This program has been doing it pretty much the exact same way, and I'll be perfectly honest, I still find this app to be vastly superior to 3D Studio Max's Unfold stuff. Every single time I have brought an object into here, I have had nothing but success. And if I want to kind of show you how many things I have brought in here, I will just scroll through this list. And you can see that the earliest here is 2011 was the first one I think one of the first ones I'd ever done, so a good 3 years or so that I've been using this app, and I still love it. I love it, love it, love it. So it's pretty easy. All you can do like a point-to-point style choosing of edges. As you can see, it's very easy to see, very easy to determine. There's also an automatic loop that you can do here that does a pretty decent job, but if it misses, it's real easy to kind of pick stuff up. So if I wanted to do them like that, it'd be real easy. You can just kind of go around these loops. It doesn't always go around like the way you want it, but then again, the reason is it will if the loop is clean. But if your model is say your model is a horse's sphincter and it's got a lot of weird stuff going on in there, so in both quality and actual what it is, it's a horse's ass, you will have to kind of guide this yourself, and you can just go like edge to edge. You can do it from pretty far away, and you can see that it gives you, as long as I hold down Alt, it gives me kind of a live trace of where it's going to go. So if it's like, say, kind of making a weird cut somewhere, you can come back, guide it, and then take it wherever you want. But in this case, it's doing a pretty good job of going around where I actually want it to go here. So I am going to go through with the unwrap and take this, and if you hit F, it will kind of zoom in on your last the last edge that you pretty much selected. So let's go around his mouth here. And basically, just like any other app, I mean, the process is pretty much the same. You just want to define your seams, however you want to cut this up. Again, it's a lot of it is dependent on your actual geometry. In this case, I took this guy and I retopologized him using Topo Gun after an initial sculpt, and now I'm going to go back with basically my second treatment. And before I do that, though, I do want to give him an unwrap. So let's see, I wanted to split that like that. Now you have to keep in mind that this guy is going to be baked and sculpted entirely. So the number of seams and where your seams are actually not really an issue. And in some cases it is an issue. If you're using something like a reflection or something like that, you may want to reduce your number of seams and eat a little bit of stretch. In this case, however, I don't plan on having him too reflective. He's going to be pretty dull. He's going to be covered by hair. Now what this guy is for me and my game is he's going to be he's going to be a boss character, and I'm going to make him really really big in the game. He's going to be like one of those Gigantor bosses. Like on the size level, I'm not going to say it's not going to be that style, but on the size level of the kind of enemies that you climb up, like in some games, like say Castlevania, God of War, any of those bosses where you're actually like climbing around on them. He's going to be like kind of on that scale. Not entirely on that scale, but really big. So I need him to be very high quality. Like, I don't want him to look like crap in really any way whatsoever. So I'm at least not, I mean, he might look like crap, you know, in terms of the art style, but not in terms of quality. I definitely don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do is keep my unwrap very large, very like I guess it can't really be larger than even a small spider or anything like that. But yeah, I am gonna make sure that he's super high quality, and what he's gonna get is a bunch of like planes coming off of him, and he's going to have you know, hair all over his body and down his legs and down his butt and stuff like that. So I'm going to attempt, I'm just kind of rambling because I got really nothing to say while I'm doing this. I'm just defining seams, and it's really easy. So depending on how far I want to really take this with worrying about how he's going to split up, is where I'm going to define these. But yeah, so basically he's going to have hair across his whole body, and what I want to do is get, if I can pull it off, and I think I can, I want to define the hairs, their alpha, with kind of like a tiling, very fine looking you know, fur type texture, where I cut it out, you know, using Photoshop and go in there and make a real nice fine hair brush kind of thing, and map all the alpha opacities to that. But I also want the color of the hair to match the color of the underlying geometry of wherever it's growing from, just to take that basic general tone, he's got tone, and put it to the color of the fur of his hair, so that like if he's tan, if he's got like, you know, like a pattern of tan with browns, I want the hair to be tan and brown. I don't want it to be just like, say, black hair across the whole body, so that it looks like he's furrier. And you can pull that off really easily with 3D Studio using the fur, because you can define the hair color using the color map, and that makes everything very easily. But you can't exactly make fur in a real-time environment, you know. You kinda can, but you gotta basically take a bunch of planes and have a good texture map. So I don't know how this is going to turn out quite yet here in terms of how I've got this split up, but I think it's going to be okay. Now you'll notice I'm kind of trying to keep somewhat, I'm just going to go, let's see, this might not be a good seam. I'm trying to find one of these that kind of cuts him in a good place here, because I got to worry about this dome on his head. So I'm thinking right there. And the thing is I want to kind of have somewhat equal size parts, somewhat, not entirely, but somewhat, because I don't want my unwrap to be dominated by any one particular element being really huge and unwieldy in terms of its shape, and I can't fit anything else. So after we define the seams using this, now the only thing that I don't like about this program, which is kind of weird, is it's almost like a little bit opposite. And it's not that I don't like it, but it's just it's different. Like, it kind of throws you off. But in order to like pan around, I don't hold Alt. Okay, I just click left click by itself. I right click and to rotate, and I middle click to zoom, but I don't hold any hotkey when I do that. And the only reason I don't like it is just because it's so ingrained in my head that I have to hold Alt to do that. But Alt is how you tell it to trail. So just real quick, holding Shift will select one edge. Holding Alt will now trail from that edge and draw its line. Okay, and the blue is basically kind of like a soft selection. It's like marking. And you'll notice that there's also an orange seam here. That is an actual seam that is kind of like undoable. Obviously this is undoable because it's an open edge. There's nothing. It's definitely a seam. There's no software in the universe that could say that that's a closed seam, because it's not. So then you can hold Control. Now the cool thing is you can actually just like say hold Shift. I can define one. I can brush across. I don't have to go and click, click, click. I can just scrub. And I really like that. It just makes everything really fast and clean. The other thing is that the visual indicators of the edges, they become slightly thicker. Like if I get real far away, you can see it kind of blobs up, but up close becomes thicker, and the colors are great. Like, they're really easy to see. It's very hard to get confused. 3D Studio's seam drawing is just, it's just horrible. It's horrible in every sense of the word horrible. It's a horror show. It's impossible to tell what the hell's going on. I can show you that when I get back into 3D Studio, but yeah, it drives me absolutely insane. It's part of the main reason why I actually went out and started looking for some other kind of way to do it. And I have a friend that turned me on to this one, and I was just like, oh yeah, dude, this is awesome. Okay, so after I got my seams defined, what I got to do is actually cut the mesh, and it's going to turn all these orange, and it's going to show some stuff like where I've cut out these sections. It kind of turns them into like holes, and it indicates that with some drawing of the triangles. And now I don't exactly like that it does this, but I don't really get like that upset or anything. So, and then once you've done that, all you do is you hit this automatic unfold, and you can see over here that it just does a bunch of stuff, and that's it. And then I just check it. Boom, hit it with a texture. I can scale it, and look at, I mean, it's like flawless. It's absolutely flawless. Anywhere where it's not flawless, it will actually color with a bit of orange tone. Now you can see here, like say I select this one, if I hit F, it'll now center my camera there, and I can just deselect it. You can see it's very slight, because this actually ended up doing a very good job, that there is a little bit of crappy orange. And the more orange it is, the deeper the orange, the more it's like couldn't figure it out, and it's got a bunch of stretch. So you can see here that I've got like some orange tone, and it's just Unfold's way of saying, okay, this is like stretching. This part of the texture is not going to be perfect, and you can see that it is. In fact, like getting wider right here, because it's impossible for it to determine how it's going to go. Now, not too many other apps would actually be able to figure this out either. So it's not like this program is butt or anything like that. It's just this is impossible to unwrap clean. So if you look, it's over here. You see, it's right here, and it's just doing its best job. Now, what I can do is, the thing is, and this is the other thing that I don't exactly like about this program, is that once I've defined these, there's like no way to stitch them back together. I can't deselect it. So what I always do is I undo after I'm done, so that I get back to this point where I can. So I check it, I cut it, I check it, I let it do its thing, and then I go, okay, well this was bad, so let me undo like 3 times, I believe, and now let me try to fix this part. And I'll just split this right there. And now we'll see how it does. Slight bit of orange, but it's not liking it. Now you can see here where the orange is very deep, that if I look over here, where is that on the, here it is. It's having a very hard time trying to cut this out. It's just not liking it at all. So I could continue creating new blue ones and just totally assume that I'm 100% happy with everything else. But I'm not, so I'm going to undo until I get back to blue. Now this is just how I decided to deal with it, not like really being able to go back on itself. And I'm going to split it, and I'm going to pull this little piece out. Now the legs are going to be socketed right here, so I'm not exactly concerned that the unwrap could potentially be bad right here, because it's going to be completely covered by other geometry. But I haven't decided yet if you're going to be able to blow his legs off. Now if you can blow his legs off, then I'm going to probably not completely just remove the leg. I'm probably going to actually see, sometimes it doesn't like going around some of these. I'm probably gonna create a separate version of the leg mesh where it's actually like got like a bit of a gore cut, where it's still got a segment of the leg, but the leg's all broken, it's dripping yellow goo, something like that. That would be what I would do if I decide that I'm gonna let the players shoot off his legs. But again, I haven't exactly decided if I'm going to do that yet. I think it might be funner if you can, but whether or not it's worth the time and whether or not it's going to be too mature for my project, because Rats is going to be my game is going to be available for kids, So let's try this. I don't want parents to have any notions that they don't feel that this game is appropriate for their 6-year-old, and a gory, violent, disgusting spider death might be scary to them. I'd much prefer comedy over gore. Now, if the game fails, I'm probably going to go back in and add a ridiculous gore mod. And if I do that, my plan would be to go absolutely ridiculously overboard with the gore, just to make it hilariously bad. Entrails and organs and just streams upon streams of goo and blood. Now his eyes, that's the other thing. It could pop his eyes. Maybe you shoot his eyes and they explode and start pouring out yellow goo all over the place. Again, it's probably too gross and scary, but I still think it might be kind of cool. So let's just Let's do these eye sockets here like so. I just needed to find one seam inside there so that it can open itself. Like so. I have done, I don't even know how many unwraps at this point, so if it's possibly like, if you're getting kind of confused, you know, like where should I define seams, really my answer is to just try and practice it, like just keep doing different cuts in different areas and see what you get, because that's the only real way to learn. And that's kind of what I did, and it's just at this point I know I can kind of pre-see it. I don't always catch everything, but I can kind of, I do have kind of a good sense of where I need to make these cuts at this point, because I can tell where turns are going to be bad. I don't hit everything on every model ever, really. Sometimes maybe, I guess, once or twice I get all the seams exactly right on my first try. But for the most part, I don't. So like, I think I'm happy with the seams that are here at this point now. But whether or not I want to do a couple of more little cuts just to help it out is kind of up in the air. Again, baked everything, painted in 3D, everything laid down on the UVs like on the fly, so I'm not doing any kind of tiling texture over him. I'm not worried about anything like that. So I'm not concerned with having visual seams because I'm not going to have visual seams. They're just not going to be there. So you can see how the orange disappeared there. That cleaned that up. Now the UVs have a seam here, but they're clean. They're going in a weird angle, but they're clean. They are you know, they've got perfect squares. If you look down the normal, straight down the normal of any spot, they're, for the most part, they're perfect squares. You can still see a hint of 1 or 2% orange in there. I don't know if that's coming through in the video, but really I'm quite happy with it. And I just want to make sure that his mouth is going to be okay. And you'll notice that I've unwrapped this guy, only half of him, because he's going to be mirrored. I need to save as much texture space as possible. He may very well be a 4096 texture, but if he is, that's only to include the hairs and stuff like that into the whole thing. So alright, so I think I'm good. So all you got to do now is you can just say like file, like save as, and just overwrite it. Yes. And you can see that here's the packing. Now the packing doesn't, one of this program's weaknesses is its packing, but I'm going to be honest and say that at pretty much all of them have that as a weakness. None of them are really great. And here's the original mesh. Now let me just zoom max into view here, and you can see that the unwrap on this guy is literally non-existent. Okay, that's what it looks like. So if I throw a checker pattern on him, he's gonna be, it's just bad, you know, nothing's working. So all I'm gonna do now is say goodbye and delete him, and I'm gonna go import and bring in the new guy. Import, and here he is. I'm going to show the unwrap here, and if I hit open UV editor, you can see it's the same exact thing. So everything came through clean. It always does. It never fails. And we do checkerboard, and you can see that the checker is a lot bigger on here. But if I put, you know, if I tiled it out more, it would definitely look good. Now let me try it. Let me see if this actually shows up. I'm going to open this up, and I'm just going to move this out of the way. And I don't have a lot of room here because of my low res capture. But let's go here and do like a point-to-point seam, which in a lot of senses is, there's not a whole lot wrong with it. Let's and you can't, like, I wish remove the texture would have told me like it would have gone, as view, don't show map. I mean, you see how I can't get rid of it? Let's like, don't show the map, view, let's see, update the map. Don't stop showing the checkerboard, you piece of shiz. But it doesn't until I close it and reopen it, so kind of stupid. It's always bugged me. I can always tell it not to show that here so I can see more clearly, otherwise my eyes explode. But let's just, I'll show you a point to point here. So you click point to point, and you have, number one, you have to use the point. You can't use the edge. So, and you can see that it's got to be somewhat accurate within 2 or 3 pixels of it, which is, I mean, okay, that's not that big of a complaint. But I'll be perfectly honest with you, when you start getting into doing a bunch of these, it can actually like start hurting your hands after a while, you know, having to be so exact. Now, one of the problems with this is that, and it's not really showing the problem so much now, but every once in a while, so if you tell it to use like a thin seam, it's almost impossible to see. I mean, the colors are okay, but what end up happening sometimes is that the seams can't, based on, let's see if I can't like just hit 2 here and pick an edge and hit Z. So see how the edge is getting thinner, and as I rotate around it's getting thicker and then thinner. It's like almost like it's drawn on the surface instead of replacing the edge. Like, look at this angle here. Like this edge right here, see how thin that is? And then when I scroll up, see how thick it is now? If it's drawn on the surface, this doesn't make any sense. Notice how it's like disappearing on you? So across your model, you end up getting this varying thickness of edges. And this is almost the entire reason why I just can't stand it. Because in this case, it's not so bad. And I'll be honest, but I'm not wrong. There are models that I've had where you're looking at it like this, and this is completely invisible. It's not there. As soon as you turn it, then all of a sudden, this gets like thick, like 8, 10, 16 pixels thick, like enough to cover another point. And it's like, what's going on? It's literally like broken. And it's been like that in 3D Studio for a really long time. Now this is Max 2014, and which is their latest version, you know, and it's still broken. And it's broken. I mean, there's no question about it. I hate it. So, I mean, you can select seams like that, which is nice, but I don't really use that too much. Okay, so now I need to pack this thing, and I just kind of do that manually anyway because I still have yet to find a program that does this well. So I like to first give myself a 0.002 here, and I check everything, rescale, rotate, and I always hit pack custom, and you can see that that is absolutely absurd. Like, anybody that would be happy with this would be fired. I mean, I would fire them. I'd fire me if I let this go. There is almost more blank space than used space. I'd say that the actual landscape of the UV space that's being covered here is at best 50%. Maybe it's more, maybe my visualization of it is off, but this is horrendous. I mean, look at this huge area of wasted pixels. Look at this humongous area over here. Look at this. And now I still think that the way that the applications could do this better would be to use a physics simulation and drop the parts. Scale everything up, then drop the parts. Scale everything up and then drop the parts. And when I say like a physics simulation, I mean turn this into a physics object with weight and have this fall and hit this small piece. Have that piece fall, and then it would come here and it would hit these pieces and fit into there, and then these pieces would fall and do their thing, you know? And then let me take a piece and move it around, and when I move this, I want these things to go and get out of the way, you know? And I think that in the end, if they did something like that, just a feature that could be turned on and off and adjusted later, that it could, in fact, create a packing that's better than what what man can do, than what a human can do. Because physics is smarter than man, you know? It always has been in real life, you know? Because man still hasn't been able to defeat it yet. We can bend it, we can use it, but we can't change it. We have no control over it. So what I do is every single time I do this, I basically bitch and piss and moan, and it's always going to happen. There's nothing stopping it. But what I do is I come here and I hit pack, and then I hit pack together, which tends to do a better job. And then now I can scale this up. But I still have quite a bit of landscape that I'm just seriously not even really utilizing. And I admit that the application cannot know. It absolutely cannot know that, number one, that this is a tarantula, right? It's like, how is it going to know that? I guess it could go through a database of other 3D models and do a general shape check and like, this most closely resembles a tarantula, but I mean, why would it not come up and say it's a salt shaker too, you know? My topology would be different than everybody else's. It's made one, stuff like that, and so there's just no way for it to know. I mean, there kind of is, you know, like the apps can figure out what song you're playing, which I still find kind of like, whoa, that's actually pretty technologically kind of cool. But I don't have a cell phone. I'm like the guy that lives in a van down by the river. I hate that kind of technology because in general I don't like I'm private in a sense, I guess. I don't like sharing. I don't want people to know what I'm doing, and I don't care what other people are doing. In fact, I don't care what other people are doing so much to the point that when they tell me what they're doing, I get upset. I actually, in my head, I don't yell at them or nothing like that. I'm not a jerk. I'm not an open jerk. I'm one of those like mental jerks where I hate everybody that says anything that like I don't care about, because my brain screams, I don't care. Shut up. Shut up. You know? I don't give two shits about what you ate for breakfast. I don't. But I don't know why I'm going off on this tangent, because here I am just taking a bunch of small pieces. Now what I could do is probably be smarter about this and stop my rambling and get to the point. I take all these small pieces, just go and grab them and find them, and do the pack together on them. And that does a very nice job actually of bringing all your pieces together. And what I usually do is I'll take a piece and I'll move it into place, and then I'll deselect it, and then I'll move the whole clump again and deselect it. So I just kind of shift everything around and just hold Alt and deselect. And the nice thing about doing it this way is that I don't have to worry too much about going around looking for other parts, seeing what's missing. I spent the one time going and grabbing it, and then when I'm done, I end up with one small piece left, and I'm done with that, you know? Okay, I missed a few. And then get rid of that because I don't need that. Okay. Let's add this into the mix, that piece, that piece. So all the little bits are all going to get packed together. And now I'm just going to move them out of the way because I can fit these anywhere. Guaranteed. Guaranteed these are not going to affect my unwrap. These big old humongous pieces, however, these are the parts of an unwrap that have to gel. These are the parts that have to puzzle together clean as possible. So what you try to do is just fit everything in as best as possible. Now it's somewhat impossible to get it right the first time you start moving everything together. So really the best approach is to just grab and move. Don't put too much brain power behind it. Don't sit there and try to pre-visualize how everything's going to fit. Just grab a piece and find a spot where it's going to fit and put it there. And if something else needs to be moved, get it out of the way. Now if it's like, oh, I don't know where I'm going to put this, then get it out of the way. Just get it out of your head and worry about it later. Fit it in later. Now again, I've done I've unwrapped, and I'm not even lying here or exaggerating, over 1,000 objects, easily. I'm gonna say I'm venturing into the 2 to 3,000 object marker now. How many objects I've unwrapped in my lifetime, done this to, thousands. So I know how it's gonna pan out in the end. I know my process. So again, I just take everything and just pull it together, and that's what I do every single time now. It's, again, this is not hands free, this is mind free. You can see I'm just rambling, but my brain is still able to do this. I don't have to sit here and concentrate on it because A, I've done it so many times, B, it's really not that hard. I mean, it'd take a genius to do this, you know, to realize how things are gonna kind of come together. So just going to pull things in and make sure that I try to get them as close in as possible. Now every once in a while you'll find that a piece is completely unwielding. I can't get this anywhere where it's not going to poke out too close to the side. And in a case like that, sometimes it's just better to just take half of it and detach it. To see how much better of a time I'm going to have now with moving this around. Now this is dependent on what you're kind of doing. Again, in this case, being that this is going to be thoroughly sculpted, painted, everything live 3D, I'm not worried about how many seams I have. Now, in a case where you had to worry about that, you would not cut it up as much as possible, you know, as you would. Now, if this was a movie, you wouldn't have to cut it up as much anyway, because in that sense, in a pre-rendered environment. Now I scale it up as soon as I can. Now I can see clearly that I'm hitting the right side before I've hit the top side. So I need to take some of these elements that are on the right side and I need to get them out of here. Now these can be, I'm quite certain, just fit into all of these little nooks and crannies and holes and stuff, and they are not going to be a problem for me. And it's working out very well already. I don't have any issues with this. All of these holes and stuff are just perfect little cavities for me to just plop those pieces in. Things like this. This right here inside here is okay, because really it's nothing, none of these are going to fit in there, that's for sure. You know, you kind of got to think like that every once in a while. So I need to kind of get this guy into a better spot. So I'm going to move these out of the way. And I'm going to see if I can't match this angle here with this angle here and stick that there. Now this guy might be better served flipped like that, because it's not going to... I'm keeping in my head this border that I've already got, and there's like hardly anything I can do about. Let me get this piece in there too. Move that closer. Now another feature that I really wish that these apps had, 3D Studio in particular, being that it's my app of choice, is a way for you to have like an outer glow on each of these. Look at that, almost perfect, almost hit corner perfect. And you can see, like, compared to the beginning, how much red versus how much gray is here. Now there's a lot of gray in between, but the eye will fill that in for you. So I'm already like just 100 times better, and I haven't spent very long on it, really, to be honest, at all. Now if I just start tightening stuff up, I can get it, you know, better yet still. Now back to what I was saying. What I would love to have is ability here to say what my texture resolution is going to be. So I'm going to say, okay, this, because here's the thing, this window is based on how big the texture is. Now if this texture was a 4x4, one whole entire quadrant of this thing is going to be one whole pixel. All of these things, no matter what, are going to be one color. There's nothing I can do about it. But if this is a 2048, one pixel is going to be all the way up in this corner like this, real tiny, right? It's going to be however big, and I can't wrap my head around that. The difference between a 1024, a 2048, and a 4096. I can break this up into 4 easy. I can probably break it up into about 10 in my head quite easily, because I know I can split. Here, then there's 5 on this side, so it'd be about, 10th would be roughly like around here or so, in this rough vicinity. But 1/4096th, I don't know, it's somewhere in this little tiny spot. I'm sure 1 pixel over it's probably finer than what I can see here, because a 4096 is going to fill more of my screen, so 1 pixel over is going to be more. Now if we could tell this to say, okay, well, this texture is going to be a 512, this texture is going to be a 1024, now let me see my padding so I can maintain a 2 to 4 pixel border. Give me an edge glow, give me a thickness, and don't be stupid, and don't make the thickness be going inside of it too. I want the inside to be, this should be a stroke that is set to the outside of the shape. And the stroke should be the number of pixels based on the texture size. So that a 2048, I would have like a border here that would be about right here, about that thick. But a 4096, it would be half that. But a 512 would be way out here. So I would know that I can't go like, I can't do this, because this is probably fine in a 4096, but in a 256, I'm going to be like out here. It's completely different, and it's completely, in my head, arbitrary, and dependent on the texture size that you're going to go with. So if there was a way for us to visualize, so I want this. I want a drop down that says 256, 512, 1024. Give me an X and a Y actually. Give me an X and a Y, and then I want another drop down that says 1 pixel, 2 pixels, 3 pixels, 4 pixels, or I can type in a number. I want a 10 pixel border. I want a 13 pixel border. However many pixels I want on my border, just let me figure that out. And if I change the resolution of the texture, I want that to calculate and expand it or shrink it based on the texture. So I can see easily, because these are just hairline edges. No matter how close or how far I get away, they're still hairline edges. They're 1 pixel edges. So there's nothing here telling me how thick anything is, So yeah, it's kind of part of the reason why I'm actually even making this video. I just kind of wanted to say that. And I'm hoping that the 3D Studio guys or Autodesk just sees this and are like, yeah, that actually does make sense. And you know what? I'm sorry, but it does. I know I'm not wrong. I know that feature would be what we need. I know we need it. It would be handy because I don't have it. I can't figure it out, and I know what it would take to fix it. It would be just to let me see a border based on that ratio of texture size versus my chosen pixel border. However many pixels I want to make sure my padding is set to. Because you see here, padding 0.002. 0.002 what? 002 what? Millimeters? Picometers? Morbometers? Godzilla meters? Who knows? What is it? Based on what? Based on what? Nothing. Based on nothing. Based on it like this, full screen, the 1920 by 1080? Based on it at what size here? So, packing sucks. Their packing sucks. And it's not that they suck. It's just that I think that it's not exactly necessarily possible. I think that it does it does a good job getting you started. And I'll admit, it doesn't cross stuff over. One of the things that Unfold 3D actually kind of tends to do sometimes is when it does its packing, every once in a while, it just completely slaps 2 things right on top of each other. Just completely, no regard for, okay, well, these 2 things are sharing the same space. It doesn't even know. It's totally dumb. The packing sucks in that program. But again, you know, you show me one that does a better job than what I'm doing here, and I'll buy it. That's my challenge for you. I issue the challenge. Show me a packing algorithm that will get me better texture usage than what I'm going to end up with when I'm done here. And I'm all over it. But I don't think you're going to find one. I've never seen one. I've never seen a video where somebody comes up and says, look, click, better than what you can do. And I'll have to challenge it if somebody makes the claim. You know, I'll go in, I'll take whatever their results are, and if I can do this operation, scale up even 1 pixel, I win. End of story. Man beats machine. But I still think that a physics drop would actually get us a lot closer, and it might be able to do better than what I could do. Because take for example, if these were pieces of cardboard sandwiched between 2 pieces of glass, like a ant farm style glass, right? Just imagine that that's how this was taken into account. A 2D physics simulation where they can't move obviously in any direction but the X and the Y. And in reality, you took these and they each had their little pixel border, you know, basically, you know, they had thickness on them, and you just shook it up. Eventually they're all going to drop down into a corner, all nicely, perfectly done apart, you know? And it might be that certain things need to kind of go through another thing or something, I don't know. But this piece right here is actually becoming kind of a pain in the ass because of all of this angular stuff. So you can see that it's probably alright. So I'm just pulling everything closer and closer, and I just keep working on it. I don't want to be here all day, but at the same time I'm off on a complete tangent, you know. But the more I do this, like for instance, this can come down, which allows this to come down, and because it came down, I just opened up this space here, which allows me to come a little bit closer to the left. I'll move it over to the right so I can make sure I'm on my shift direction, my axis constraint. That allows this. Now this piece I still have not yet to completely uncover entirely, but if this just comes up here, that allows this to come in. You can see again more space. The more I work on it, the more I get. Now I could, again, because this piece is kind of a pain in the bumski, if I take this, for instance, and I put it like here, that will probably allow me to do maybe something like this. So actually what I'm going to do, so I'm going to match the distance here. I'm going to move this guy here, which is going to allow me to take this piece and most likely go like this, and boom, more space. More usage. Constantly, every time I touch it, every time I make an edit, I get more out of it. Literally, every single time I do anything. As soon as I shift things so I can get them all together, I'm good. Now eventually I do run out of the ability to do it. But I could probably go back to any one of my unwraps from the past and get more space out of it. At least a couple pixels. Like for instance, if I take this and move that in there, I just got to move this up a little bit. Now these two have a humongous amount of room to come back in. And then I hit Control A and boom, more space. Significantly more space that time. Now eventually you get to the point where your giant pieces are the ones that are blocking the space. For instance, I cannot get much closer here unless I take this piece and cut it in half. Now if I take this piece and cut it in half, I will get more space, you know, but I'll have to kind of redo everything, and I'm I'm way too invested in this particular layout. But if they had a, you know, it would be nice if there was a way for the program to do what I said. Okay, show you a padding edge width based on a texture size, and that would be fantastic. But it would also be nice if I could say boom, hit Control A, and I could have this come up here and say like 82.3% usage, you know, for it to figure out how many pixels I'm using versus the whole space. Because obviously I've got a lot of space here. I've got a lot of space here. I got a bunch of space here. Here. There's nothing going on right here. But is me moving anything around going to do anything to get that back? Not really. Does it matter if I move any of these little pieces up into here? Versus, I mean, they're already split up okay over here. But again, I'm completely guessing on how much padding I have. I have to guess. I have no indication. I have no reference. My brain cannot handle that. My mind. Maybe yours can. But I, you know, looking at a 4096, I'm just assuming that I've got quite. I can get pretty dang close, and I'm not going to bleed. You know. But the other thing is maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it doesn't matter because maybe mipmaps are going to bleed over anyway. Because remember, a mipmap goes smaller and smaller and smaller. So as you go farther, but then your mipmap shouldn't really be showing up until you're far away, as well as on your LODs. You know, it should all be kind of a gelled thing. So there's no reason why the eye would see any of that. And more space. If I angle this a little bit differently, for instance, like that. But again, I'm hitting this. Now, I can get more space out of this if I take some of these creepers, and let's say, for instance, I get this guy just out of the way, and I pull this down. Now I can pull this down and diagonally. This can just go in here. Doesn't matter. Now I'll just put it here. So I moved that piece that was hitting the edge out of the way, right? And lo and behold, more space. Constantly improving it. And that's one of the reasons why, let's see if there's a better angle that I can find for this guy. I sometimes it's hard to find one of the hardest things about doing this is finding a spot to stop. Like at what point do you stop, you know? And honestly, sometimes you just gotta say that point is now. So boom, done. Collapse 2. There's my unwrap. So half this guy's unwrapped. So now I'm just gonna symmetrize him in the Y, and I'll flip it. Okay, the symmetry point is at 0, 0, 0. So I just collapse 2. And now what I end up with is this double flipped UVs. So if I come back in here, my favorite place in the world, in this asshole view, I'm going to select faces here and go select inverted polygonals. Now I can take them and move them, and these are all flipped over. But I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is go by absolute mode, or relative mode actually, and hit 1, and it's just going to move everything over 1, and then I'm going to flip it. And that's it. So it's in another tile. So when I go now to select inverted polygons, I don't get anything. And every once in a while there'll be one polygon in there that keeps showing up as inverted, and it's like it's a kind of a glitch. Or it could be maybe that the hidden edge is flipped or something incorrectly. I don't know why that shows up. But now what I can do is I can sculpt this, and when I bake my normals, I don't get this double laydown of the normals. Because remember, when I go to sculpt this, I'm sculpting the whole thing solid. If I didn't, every time I hit the smooth tool, these inner edges would pull in. You can't really sculpt half a model. It doesn't work. You have to put symmetry on it so that and then use the symmetry modifier in the application. Usually you use symmetry when you sculpt, and then when it comes time to create markings and details like scars and cuts and scratches and things like that, that's when you take off the symmetry. Or when you want to say, okay, well this fang is bent differently, you know, that's when you take off symmetry. But for the most part, to save time, all of your patterning and stuff like that and your general sculpting shapes end up with symmetry. So, and plus it just saves you time, you know, I mean, it saves you time and it saves you texture resolution, because I don't need to worry that people are going to be like, obviously that's symmetrical. Yeah, it is, because that's how games are usually done, because we need to save space. In a movie, it's a different story, because I'm rendering it. I've got 13 hours to render one frame, but can you imagine playing a game that took 13 hours to render one frame? It'd be like playing Call of Duty 1. Ah, snap. So here we have this flip. Now what's going to happen is when it, what did I hit? When I bake the normals, if I didn't flip this over, it would bake the normals of this side, right? And it would put them here. I'll just put this back. So let's just put this back. -1. Okay, so that's back in place. So this half is going to get baked, and it's all facing to the left, right? All the details of the sculpt and all that, they're all facing up and left and down and left, right? Well, then when it's done with that, it's going to do this side, which is all facing to the right. So what you end up with is almost every single one of these faces gets this diagonal line through it where it didn't know which way to go, left or right. So you just get this huge, basically broken normal map, and that's why you get the broken normal map. It's because you had flip UVs on top. So what you do, and now I'm using Mudbox for all my sculpting and stuff, is you make it so that it's not flipped, because you don't want it to be going up and left, but then this is backwards so that it kind of shows up and right. Then you move it over one tile, and Mudbox fortunately reads this. UDK does not read this. UDK doesn't read this for 1 second. It only sees in here. Okay? It will not come out. A texture has to tile every one of these cubes. You know, if you visualize squares here, they're all tiles. So you can put stuff out here, but UDK sees this right here. This set selection right here in UDK is exactly the same as it's seeing it right there. It doesn't know. It just says, okay, I want tiled over, you know, which is acceptable and fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not bagging on it or anything like that. But that's how it works. But Mudbox, however, will see this, and it will call this U2V1. U being the horizontal, V being the vertical. I don't know, what is U anyway? I'm trying to wrap my brain around. I can't remember what U stands for. Why it's UV and not XY, you know, or HV. So anyway, whatever, who cares? So what it'll do is Mudbox will put this on a separate texture. And what I can do is, but this side here will be normal mapped correctly and perfectly. But you got to remember that it's a tangent space based off of the surface object itself. So you may think, oh, well, if I take this and I flip it back over and I put it on here, that everything that's poking out over here is going to be dipped in over here. But it's not like that. It is not like that. It's tangent space, so it still pokes out. Okay, in a world space environment, yeah, it would. If I had a lump on his head here, I would have a dent on his head here, you know. But the way it works in tangent space is it's just based off of the surface angle itself. So a lump here is a lump here. I mean, I've got hundreds and hundreds of models that I've done this to, and they all look fine. It's not like they look half flipped, you know. So we get this out of the way. we keep it here so we can sculpt, but we get the UVs out of the way so that the flipped over polygons don't interfere with the baking of the normal map. Because we can't double bake. We can't have a left and a right get double baked into the exact same spot. So the other thing we do is we just checked overlapped polygons. And you can see that I got a few here, which for some reason I don't have over here, even though they're overlapped. Now the reason for that is because if I take a look, it's this part here. Now what I did, I made a mistake. I forgot. I didn't complete this. You see that? So all I gotta do here, I'll do this. I want to fix them both at the same time. I don't want to have to do this twice. So I'll move it back, -1, and I'll reflip it. And you'll see it's dead on exact. Now I'm gonna come here and grab these faces like so. See how the way the unwrap worked? It had to go this way because of the shapes. And I just hit Control D. And now I can fit it wherever I want. Now I gotta remember here to if I just say grab this and I just click and move it, I get left behind. So I have to drag across so that I make sure I get both of them, because there's 2 in every spot here. Take any one of these and I move it out of the way, there's another one there for the other side, right? So to get it, you just drag across and now you can get them both. So that should be fixed. Now I can't do this yet, select overlap polygons, because they're all overlapping. But I can say inverted, and once again go over and mirror it. And now if I check, I should be okay. Select inverted, nothing. Select overlapped, nothing. Those are my main checks. It's not the only checks you need to do. You need to make sure that you're using as much space. You want to get rid of as much stretching as you can. But that's it. I'm good. Collapse 2. Export. Zoom in on them. Let's just deselect them. So this is like the low res cage, 4,600 polygons, not including the legs. Somebody might be tempted to say, hey, stupid, 1, 2, 3, 4, wait, 5? You got 10-legged spider? I'm making fun of my teammate. He was like, dude, you got 10 legs. And I was like, nah, dude, spiders have 8 legs and 2 arms. All of them do. They've got their pedipalps. Or maybe these are the mandibles, right? These are the mandibles. And the other ones are the pedipalps, the things that they kind of use to feel. That they sit there and they tap the ground with and they grab stuff with. They hook onto it. I used to have a pet tarantula. Looked pretty much like this, except the butt was much smaller, thinner. I find them scarier when the butt is bigger. For some reason I feel like that's where their engines are. That the bigger their butts are, the more venom firing power that they have. But I had a tarantula, and the thing was an unknown species. It was like completely unknown. It was some kind of weird hybrid, and it was insane. And I don't mean it like cool or anything like that. I mean it was mentally insane. It was unstable. It attacked like everything. I mean, it was vicious, and that's why I picked it up. Because I've always loved spiders in terms of them being like a sci-fi monster, like a scary creature. And the only thing that saves us from these things is that we are just vastly larger than they are. But if that was reversed, the world would have never developed into what it is today. From these guys alone. If there were giant spiders in the world, technology would not be where it is today. It would be all centered around fighting giant spiders, So, yeah, I used to have this thing, and it was so fast that when it went from one side of the terrarium to another, you couldn't see it happen. It got to the other side in literally the blink of an eye. And not only was it that fast and aggressive towards anything and everything that even made any kind of remote movement in its terrarium, it was a completely unknown species and highly, 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 highly venomous. When this thing got pissed off, the venom was not like a drip that just hung there. It was drops that were going bloop, 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 bloop. And eventually she died, and I was a little upset. She burrowed herself and then died, and I was mad. But I did decide to include her in my game at some point. And, you know, like I said, she was roughly this kind. But she was like I said, she was the thinner kind of tarantula. You know, they got the big fat ones they got the big thick legs, and they're really slow and they're very docile, and they'll bite you, but they won't actively bite you. They'll only bite you when they feel threatened. For the most part, they don't care because they don't see you as food. But the thin ones, the ones with the thin legs and the smaller bodies, those are the ones you got to watch out for. They're smaller than the big ones, you know, the fat ones, but they're way more aggressive and way more vicious. So this guy's going to be like the big lumbering idiot kind, you know, like the derp, and that's why he's going to be more hairy. But the funny thing is when I got my tarantula, I don't know I'm telling you guys this, but when I got my tarantula, I got when I first got it, I didn't know anything about it, so I got a book, and the first thing that the book said, I'm not kidding. The first thing that the book said, it said, "Make no mistake, tarantulas have no emotions. They do not love you. They do not care about you. They will bite you for any reason whatsoever. So always, always, always be careful. You know, like, don't ever assume, no, this tarantula likes me. It won't bite me, because bam, it's gonna bite you. It doesn't even know you're there. That's how much it cares about you. You know, it's in a lot of ways, it's like a cat." Alright, Hip-Hop signing off, and I will see you guys in the next one. Hopefully you enjoyed this unwrapping kind of tutorial. It was very interesting indeed, I think. If you're having issues with this, it's very organic, so it should have posed somewhat of a challenge for anybody. So, yeah, Hip-Hop signing off, and I'll see you in the next one.